Hey there, jewelry friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. My name is Desiree, and I am your jewelry reselling bestie. Today's episode is part two to last week's episode, which is everything resellers need to know about gold jewelry. So if you haven't watched part one, I am going to link it here in this video. If you're watching on YouTube, it will also be in the description. And if you're listening to this episode, I will have a link to part one in the episode show notes. All right, so we are going to get into some more information as it relates to learning about gold jewelry. And I think this is really important because, like I say all the time, the more knowledge and the more education we have as it relates to jewelry, the much better resellers we will be. And we will also be better sourcers because we'll be able to recognize valuable pieces when we see them. All right. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about how the different gold types impact resale value and customer appeal. All right. So, we're going to talk about what draws people in to look for gold pieces or want to buy pieces. Okay. We're also going to talk about how to authenticate gold jewelry. I know this is a big one for a lot of us as resellers. So I'm going to share with you some tips and some methods that you can use to authenticate the gold jewelry that you find or that you source or that maybe you have in your collection and you just want to know. And then finally, I am going to cover how to care for gold jewelry specifically. I'm going to share some tips and tricks for that so you can pass this on to your customer or to your buyers, because we want to make sure that when someone is investing in a piece of jewelry, we want them to have the best experience possible. And so one of the ways we can do that is to give them the information they need in order to protect their purchase. All right, so I do have my notes here. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, I always like to remind you to make sure you head on over to our website, which is jewelryresellerspodcast.com, because over there I have a lot of information. You can listen to all the past episodes, and I have blog articles that are specific for us as jewelry resellers on a variety of topics. And then you can also sign up for our newsletter where you can instantly download the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. And this is a list that I created from my own research and from my own experience. And like I said, you can get an instant downloadable copy of that. All you got to do is head to the website, and that's jewelryresellerspodcast.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get into part two of everything resellers need to know about real gold jewelry. So we've already talked about the carat system. We talked about the different types of gold jewelry, the purity of gold jewelry. Okay, all of that I covered in part one. So if you have not watched that, I would definitely start there. And then come back and watch or listen to part two, which is what we're what we're doing right now. All right, so we're going to start with how gold types impact resale value and customer appeal. All right, I think this is very important to know and to understand because gold jewelry buyers tend to have a very specific preference, and a lot of them are looking for something that they believe is going to be an investment for them. At least this has been my experience. All right. Not that I've had, thousands upon thousands of people asking me for real gold jewelry, but I have noticed that they tend to be a little bit more of an educated buyer, or they tend to have very specific preferences when they are looking for real gold jewelry pieces. Okay, so the type of gold used in jewelry plays a significant role in its resale value and its customer appeal. So let's take a look at how the different gold types impact both factors. So number one is the resale value. Now, a lot of people will invest in gold, either gold coins, in this case, gold jewelry, because it is and it can be a very solid investment for a lot of people. All right, so solid gold, especially at the higher purities, 18 karat, 24 karat, holds significant resale value due to its high gold content. Pieces made of 24 karat gold are often or are the most valuable, but less common due to their softness. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about how you don't really see a whole lot of jewelry made with 24 karat gold because it's just not as durable. However, it is the most expensive gold. Okay, solid gold's intrinsic value remains relatively stable, which appeals to buyers who see their jewelry as an investment. Okay, so there are people who are looking for gold jewelry pieces to keep in their family as heirlooms or to pass down to their children, their grandchildren, or whatever. Okay, so there's also gold plated jewelry, which we talked about in part one. The gold plated jewelry has a much lower resale value, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable, and that doesn't mean that people are not looking for it. All right, so this is what I like to say is kind of trendy jewelry, or maybe somebody just needs a beautiful necklace for a one time event or a photo shoot or something like that. So they're not really looking for something that's going to last for years and years. They may just need it for, like I said, a one time thing. There's also gold filled jewelry. We talked about that in part one as well. Now, this is much more durable than gold plated, and it can maintain its resale value uh, if it's properly cared for, right? And I think a lot of gold filled jewelry does show up in the vintage jewelry market. And we have seen that some pieces are, you know, decades and decades old, and they still look amazing because they've been cared for properly. All right. And then we also have the different colors of gold, which are yellow, white, and rose, which we talked about again in part one. And then there's also the green and black. Again, it depends on what the customer preference is and what they're looking for. But a lot of the other colors, like the green and black, those are going to be the green and black gold, those are going to be gold colors that are more for custom design because those are not very common. And so you probably won't find a lot of that type of gold when you're outsourcing. All right. You may come across something that is extraordinary, but typically you probably won't see that. Okay, so now let's talk about the customer appeal. I kind of went over this in part one. Yellow gold is very timeless and classic. A lot of people like that, and I think that's what most people are familiar with. There's also white gold, which is a little bit more modern and minimalist, and I think a lot of people who like silver also like white gold just because of its aesthetic and how it looks. Okay. Um, Potential buyers are often aware that white gold requires periodic rhodium plating to maintain its luster, which can impact appeal if they prioritize low maintenance pieces. So I just wanted to throw that out there that white gold definitely has a maintenance cost to it. And that may or may not be something that somebody wants to invest in. Okay. We also have rose gold. I talked about this too, where it is trendy and appeals to much more of a younger demographic. But again, that doesn't mean it's less in demand, although again, it could be depending on the type and the style. But rose gold is still very popular today. Now, the other things that people think about when they're buying gold is durability and maintenance. All right. So we want to make sure that we can communicate that to our buyers, especially if they have questions about, oh, how am I going to take care of this? Or how do I maintain the beauty or whatever? These are things that we want to communicate to our buyers because some people, actually, a lot of people will ask, they'll say, is this going to break if I buy it? Or, how do I keep this in really good condition? All right. And a lot of times, too, people just want to know that they're buying something and that they're spending the money on something that is worth it to them. Okay. And the cost of that will vary depending on your buyer. Okay. So when it comes to gold, One of the things, or I should say, three of the things we want to think about as resellers is that it does have a higher resale value. It does have a broad customer appeal. I don't know anybody that doesn't appreciate gold in some way, shape, or form, real gold, and the maintenance and the durability of it. For the most part, gold jewelry is going to last. Okay, and that's what a lot of people want, and that is what they're looking for when they are wanting to invest in gold jewelry. Okay, so now I want to talk about how can we authenticate gold jewelry, because this is, I think, the thing that trips a lot of people up. And some of us are nervous about it, some of us worry about it, or some of us just don't know, like, how should I, with what? Okay, so this section is going to cover tips for authenticating real gold jewelry. All right, and like I said, I get many years ago when I was first starting as a jewelry reseller, I was really nervous, and I was worried about, is this real? Is this fake? And it just kind of takes experience and time to learn about how to authenticate gold jewelry. And we don't have to invest in expensive equipment to do this. There are some things that are affordable, but if you really believe you have something that is truly rare or very, very expensive, you can always take it to a jeweler and have them test the piece for you. I know some jewelry stores or places will offer that as a service. Okay, but let's go ahead and get into authenticating, because I have a lot to cover, and I have my notes because I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, so we're going to talk about stamps or markings, tests, and other methods to verify gold type and gold purity. We're going to discuss how to detect if a piece is solid, plated, or filled. And then we're going to talk about the tools or resources resellers might want to use for authenticating their jewelry, like acid tests or gold testing kits. Okay, so authenticating gold jewelry involves several methods to verify its authenticity, purity, and quality. So let's get into how we can determine if a piece is genuine gold. All right, so the first thing we want to do is visually inspect the piece and look for any markings, stamps, or whatever. All right, hallmarks, whatever. Most authentic gold jewelry is stamped with a carat mark, and this is KARAT, such as 10K, 14K, or 18K, indicating its purity. You might also find European marks like 417 for 10 carat, 585 for 14 carat, or 750 for 18 carat. Okay, so you want to look closely for these marks, often found on clasps, inner bands if it's a ring or a bracelet or something, or on sometimes very discreet or hidden areas of the piece. Especially like on brooches, sometimes you will find the little stamp somewhere and it's kind of hidden and it's not that obvious. All right, so if you have a loop, which is that jeweler's magnifying glass, you want to make sure that you really look at the piece and look for any type of hallmarks or markings, stamps, or whatever. All right. So, also, when it comes to your visual inspection, you want to check for wear and discoloration. Okay, so examine the areas of the jewelry that experience the most wear, such as the edges of the inner band of a ring, certain places on a necklace, maybe. Gold plated or gold filled pieces may show fading or signs of wear, with the base metal starting to show underneath, while solid gold should maintain a consistent color throughout the entire piece. All right, so you just want to look for any type of wear or discoloration anywhere on the piece. Okay, so that's the visual inspection part. Next is the magnet test. All right. So I think a lot of us learned this early on in our jewelry reselling careers. And you can buy jewelry magnets, magnets they're like heavy duty magnets specifically for jewelry. I do have a link listed in the description, also on the website under resources, if you are looking for one, the one that I use, and it's not very expensive. You can find them for, I want to say, around $10, maybe even less than that. All right, so let's talk about the magnet test. So this is how it works. Gold is not magnetic, so it won't be attracted to a magnet. Using a strong magnet or a jewelry magnet, you want to hold it near the jewelry piece. If the item is attracted to the magnet, it is likely made from or has parts of a magnetic metal like nickel, steel, or iron, suggesting that it may not be solid gold. All right, now here's the thing with the magnet test. Sometimes, like this happened to me. I had a necklace, and the necklace chain was 14 karat gold, but the clasp on that chain was not. And so the magnet picked up the clasp, but it did not pick up the chain, which was 14 karat gold. So understand that there are limitations with the magnet test, but at least it kind of gives you a general idea. And then you can decide whether you want to do additional tests. Okay. Because sometimes you'll see that happen. Or sometimes, like, parts of a piece will be 14 karat or 18 karat, whatever, gold. And then other parts of the jewelry piece won't be. I've seen this in necklaces, like the pendant may not be real gold, but the chain is. Or sometimes you will see it in bracelets where parts of the bracelet are real gold, but the clasp may not be, or whatever. So just understand that when you are using the magnet test, there could be some areas where it may or may not, pick up. Okay, so next, I have limitations. Some metals and gold alloys are non-magnetic. So a magnet test alone is not definitive, like I said. This method works best as a quick initial test rather than the ultimate conclusive decision test. All right. So I keep a jewelry magnet in my purse. So sometimes if I happen to be out sourcing and I come across a piece, I can always whip out my magnet because it's real small. And then I can determine whether or not this is a piece of something that I want to pick up, or maybe I want to look at a little bit more closely. Okay, so that is the magnet test. Next up, we're going to talk about acid testing. All right. Now, this is a test that scares a lot of resellers because honestly, it can damage the piece. All right. And we don't want to do that, especially if it is a real gold piece. However, depending on, the piece, it may already have some damage, so it might not be a big deal. But this is another way that you can test your gold jewelry at home. All right, so how this works: acid testing involves applying a drop of nitric acid or gold testing acid to a small scratch on the jewelry. Each carat requires a specific acid solution, which will react differently depending on the gold purity. All right, so here's some examples. 24 karat gold will have no reaction with any gold testing acid. 18 karat gold reacts only with lower carat solutions, and 10 karat gold may only react with nitric acid. Okay, so these are some things to keep in mind. Now, when you buy these acid tests, they do come with little bottles, depending on the carat that you're testing. All right, and each one is marked, and you only need a drop, so you just get little tiny bottles. Again, I do have some linked in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening and you head on over to the website. I have an entire resources page where I list all of these tools that you may be interested in. And if you would like to see the ones that I use, I do have them linked for you there. Okay. So caution with the acid testing. This test should be done carefully, as, like I said, the acid can damage the jewelry if done incorrectly. Okay, many resellers or jewelers using testing kits for accuracy or take items, use testing kits for accuracy, or take items to a professional. Okay, so use the acid test at your own risk. Again, it can be done incorrectly. I've seen jewelry resellers damage jewelry pieces trying to test it. So you just have to be very, very careful. Okay. All right. The next testing method is using electronic devices. And the one that I am talking about is electronic or X ray fluorescence, also known as XRF testing. All right. Now, I don't know anybody who does this, at least not resellers who do this, um, because it does involve a piece of, I think the equipment is expensive or either people just don't have it. But this is an advanced level of testing. It uses X rays to measure the metal composition without damaging the jewelry. XRF machines can provide a precise percentage of each metal in the alloy, confirming the carat and any other metals present. Okay, where to get this done? Most people don't own this type of equipment, but many reputable jewelry stores or pawn shops offer XRF testing. Okay, so, and I'm going to assume they don't do this for free. So this may be something that you have to invest in. It is accurate, non-invasive, and especially useful for high value pieces. Okay, so this is another option. Again, I probably would not seek out this type of testing unless the piece I had was, I had a really good feeling like it was something that was very valuable, very high end, or very rare. Okay. All right. The next test is the density or the float test. And I have seen people do this on YouTube. So you probably can YouTube it if you want to see how it's done. But the way it works is that pure gold is denser than most metals. So solid gold will sink in water. For this test, all you have to do is fill a container with water and gently drop your piece in. Solid gold will sink quickly, while gold plated or hollow jewelry may not. Okay. Now, there are some limitations with this testing. It's a very basic test and it's not conclusive, and some metals may also sink. So, if you have maybe a gold filled piece, it could also sink. It's more useful as a supplementary test along with other testing methods. But this one is just kind of fun. And like I said, I've seen people do it. So I thought I would throw it in there. And like I said, it's a really great initial test to kind of get an idea of, another testing, or whether or not you want to add on another testing method. Okay. Now, finally, the last test, and this is not something you can do at home, but this is professional appraisal or certification. Okay. You can go to a jewelry store, or gemologist, whatever. Oh, well, maybe not a gemologist, because that, I don't know if that would necessarily be gold. But professional appraisers are skilled in authenticating gold using a combination of these techniques and specialized equipment. For high value pieces or items being bought or sold, it's wise to obtain an appraisal or some type of certification or authentication. Okay. Certification, some jewelry comes with certificates of authenticity from recognized labs like GIA or IGI, which indicate quality and purity. This is common for fine or branded jewelry and increases buyer confidence. All right, so I guess you could um, search out somebody from GIA and get the piece authenticated, because I'm going to assume that they probably have a lot of these tools and stuff. Okay, so let's summarize the testing methods that we talked about today. We talked about visual inspection. That's always going to be our first way to determine what type of solid gold or gold piece of jewelry that we have. We're going to look for the hallmarks, the stamps, and the consistent coloring. Next, we're going to do the magnet test. Again, I think all resellers should have a jewelry magnet because they're very affordable. They don't take up a lot of space. And again, it's going to be another way that you can determine, at least initially, whether or not you want to test even further. We also talked about acid testing. And remember, this is something that you can do at home yourself. However, you do have to be careful because there is the risk of damaging the piece. We also mentioned the electronic XRF testing. This is probably something that you are going to have to find someone to do for you unless you have the machine at home. We talked about the density test, which is dropping the piece of jewelry in water. And then finally, professional appraisal. Again, that's going to be something that you have to invest in with a professional jeweler, jewelry store, whatever. Okay, so that is all the ways that I know of as it relates to testing your solid gold jewelry. Okay, so finally, we are going to get into how to care for the different types of gold jewelry. Okay, so caring for gold jewelry properly ensures its longevity and keeps it looking as beautiful as possible. Each type of gold, yellow, white, rose, and alternative finishes like gold plated or gold filled, they all have different care requirements to maintain its appearance. Okay, so we're going to talk about that now. Let's start with yellow gold because I think that is the most common and what we all are most familiar with. As it relates to cleaning yellow gold, you want to soak yellow gold jewelry in warm water with a few drops of mild dish soap. I literally only use a drop of Dawn liquid, and that is more than enough to get it clean. They also have polishing cloths designed for gold jewelry, and I use that too. Um, some people use like a soft toothbrush. I don't like to use brushes on my gold jewelry just because I worry about it scratching. Now, I know 14 karat's pretty durable, 10 karat even more so, but I still worry. I mean, unless the piece was like really dirty and grimy and there was like stuff I needed to get out, like in between the crevices, I would not use a brush unless I absolutely had to. Okay. Like I talked about the polishing cloths, you can find those at Walmart. You can find them at like the mall. I've seen those polishing cloths even at stores like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross. Again, it's kind of hit or miss though, but the polishing cloths are what I use mostly for my gold jewelry. And then as it relates to storing yellow gold, you want to make sure that you keep it in a soft cloth bag. I do not recommend storing gold jewelry in plastic if you can avoid it. I mean, it's not going to damage anything, but I just worry about if moisture were to get in there. The plastic bag doesn't allow the moisture to evaporate. And so you just want to be careful. But if that's all you got, that's all you got. Just make sure the piece is thoroughly dry before putting it in the plastic. Gold is a soft metal, so keeping it away from other pieces is also important. So I always want to tell my buyers if they're storing a gold jewelry piece to put it in its own individual bag or individual compartment in your jewelry box or case or whatever. Just because you don't want it to kind of clink around with other jewelry pieces. Okay, so that's for yellow gold. Let's talk about white gold next. All right, so similar to yellow gold, use warm water and a mild soap. They also have polishing cloths that you can use here. Now, the thing with the white gold is the rhodium replating. White gold is often plated with rhodium for extra shine and scratch resistance. Over time, like we talked about, this can wear off, revealing a yellowish tone underneath. Okay, to restore the original look, you want to have white gold professionally replated every 1 to 2 years, depending on how often you wear the piece. So if it's something you wear daily, you're probably going to need to get it replated in about a year. If it's something you only wear once in a while, maybe you can go 3, 4, 5 years before getting it replated. Okay. Storing white gold, you want to store it in a soft cloth or bag again, or a lined jewelry box to prevent scratches, especially if it's rhodium plated. Okay. Because we don't want to store it with other pieces where it could get scratches or nicks on it. All right, next up, rose gold. Clean rose gold again with warm soapy water. You could use a soft brush if you want. Again, I tend not to. Avoid abrasive cleaners or chemicals. As rose gold copper alloy can react with certain substances, which could lead to dulling or even corrosion. Okay, so just be very, very careful. Don't use those gold jewelry cleaners that you dip the stuff in. It has the little basket or tray and you dip it in. I would not clean rose gold that way. Okay, I would just worry about the chemicals messing something up. All right, you also want to avoid excessive moisture. The copper and rose gold can tarnish more easily than other gold alloys, so we want to keep rose gold dry. Remove rose gold jewelry before showering, swimming, exercising, and wipe it with a dry, soft cloth after each wear. Rose gold jewelry should be stored separately, as copper's reaction to moisture can sometimes transfer a light color onto other metals or stones. So, a soft bag or a jewelry box is ideal. Okay, continuing on, let's talk about gold plated jewelry. Gentle cleaning when it comes to gold plated jewelry. Now, again, I would not dunk gold plated jewelry into water if I didn't have to. I would just use a soft, damp cloth and just kind of wipe the areas that need to be wiped clean, because that gold layer can easily wear off, flake off, chip off, whatever. And so you don't want to do that. You want to avoid chemicals and abrasives, like we've talked about. Don't put lotion on or perfumes and all that, because it will cause the gold plating to fade. And you want to remove gold plated jewelry before washing your hands. So if you have a bracelet or something like that, and you definitely do not want to wear it in the swimming pool or in the ocean. Okay. So if you are going to enjoy, or if your customer is going to enjoy water activities, make sure you remind them to remove their jewelry. Okay. Next step, as it relates to storage, gold plated items should be stored separately in a jewelry box or a pouch, because the plating can chip or rub off, like we talked about, when it is in contact with other jewelry pieces. All right, so just be very careful with that. Next up, we have gold filled jewelry. All right, clean gold filled jewelry similarly to solid gold with mild soapy water and a soft brush. All right, again, it depends on the piece. I don't like to use brushes on my jewelry pieces if I don't have to. Gold filled items are more durable than gold plated, so they can handle a little bit of a scrubbing. Okay, so again, it's going to be your call, and you're going to have to judge whether or not it actually needs it. You want to avoid harsh chemicals like we've been talking about. And like solid gold, you're going to store gold filled jewelry in a soft bag or a jewelry box, like we've been talking about, to avoid scratches, dings, or nicks, or anything like that. All right, now I threw this in my notes: green gold and black gold. All right, now I know this is something we're probably not going to come across very often, but there is always the possibility. So when it comes to green gold, clean green gold like you would other gold types with warm soapy water. Avoid abrasive cleaners that could damage its unique finish. Black gold is often coated or alloyed to achieve its dark color. So you want to avoid abrasive cleaners, ultrasonic machines, and strong chemicals, as these can wear away the finish. All right, stick to, and this one, I don't even know if you would want to submerge it in water. You would just use a damp cloth when it comes to black gold, just so you can keep that finish as beautiful as you can keep it. All right, so those are my tips as it relates to the green gold and the black gold. Okay, so finally, I'm going to give you some general tips for all gold jewelry. So basically, we want to tell our customers and our buyers to remove their gold jewelry before any type of physical activity, swimming, exercising, whatever, anything where, even showering in some cases, because we don't want to weaken the gold in any way or damage it. Okay. You want to regularly inspect your jewelry for loose stones, maybe loose clasps, general wear, and taking it to a jeweler annually or however often for professional cleaning and inspection can help maintain its beauty and its durability. And then you want to avoid high temperatures. All right. Keep gold jewelry away from extreme heat, which can weaken or warp delicate pieces over time. So you want to be very careful again, depending on where you live. I live in Las Vegas. So, but I don't store my jewelry outside. So my jewelry is always, in my room or in my office, whatever. And but for some people who may live in climates where there's a lot of humidity or they have extreme temperatures, that's just something to be aware of. All right, make sure you store your jewelry in some type of climate controlled environment. All right, so those are the tips I have for you as it relates to caring for the different types of gold. And I hope that this was helpful for you. And I hope it answered some questions that you may have had as it relates to gold jewelry. Like I said, caring for it and understanding the uniqueness of the different types of gold jewelry as it relates to what we're selling, what we're sourcing, or what our particular buyers may be looking for. Okay, so I really enjoyed the research for this episode. And like I said, every time I learn something, I just realize how much how much I don't know. So, if there is anything maybe I didn't mention, or maybe something I did not cover as it relates to the topic of gold jewelry, I would love it if you tell me about it. So maybe I can do a follow up, or I can do another episode talking about that. Okay, because I want to share as much information as I possibly can share. And I would appreciate any feedback that you guys can give me as it relates to this topic of solid gold. I think what I'm going to do next is silver, because I really like silver jewelry. I like gold and silver, but I think a deep dive on silver would be really fun too. And I better get started on researching that probably later today. All right. So I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. Like I said, I would appreciate any feedback that you can give me on these two episodes, because this is part two, and I hope you were able to watch part one. I will link it, like I said, either in this video, in the description, as well as the show notes if you're listening to the audio version. All right, my friends, thank you so much again for spending this time with me, and I'll check in with you again really soon.